Hi, my name is Bashar, and I'm a gamer. Every year, my friends and I like to get together, either online or in person, along with millions of others, to celebrate our passion for the thing we love most and see what the future of the industry holds for us. Which begs the question, why is it that gamers are so passionate about games? Before I continue, I'd just like to point out that some games are going to be mentioned later on, and I had nothing to do with the development of those games. I don't intend to advertise. I'm simply a fan. I'd first like to clarify what a gamer actually looks like in 2018 in order to really tackle this problem. If I asked you right now to think of a typical gamer, it would probably go somewhere along the lines of 16-year-old boy who hasn't left his room since the dawn of time. But if we take a look at some numbers, we see that the average age of a gamer today is actually 34 years old, over 40% of which are women, and as we're going to see later on, games have an unmatched ability of bringing people together. I also find it noteworthy that games are often considered a waste of time. But upon closer inspection, we see that for a lot of people, games offer a frame in which they can socialize. They encourage and hone gamers' cognitive skills, such as memory and proprioception, as well as other skills such as self-expression, creativity, and leadership. This is most prominent, for example, in games such as massively multiplayer online games, or MMOs, in which working together and being able to solve problems in a group and lead is a prominent feature in the game. Not being able to do so would halt or slow down your progress in the game. Games also have immense value in scientific research, medicine, and education. And then I thought to myself, that can't be it. Everything I just said is all well and good, but if you ask a gamer why they play games, it's never because it improves their memory or makes it easier for them to touch their noses with their eyes closed. Proprioception joke. So this had to be looked at from a different perspective. In my work with two close friends of mine who helped me with the creation of this talk, Dr. Tahar Abuful, PhD in cognitive science, and Dona Watad, electrical engineer at Intel, we've learned that what separates a game from a movie or a great book is responsibility. The player is responsible for what's happening on screen at all times. And that responsibility ties us to the experience. It makes it personal and unique to us. If we look at the way that we experience something in real life and thought of our brain activity as a horse race, then an experience or a horse is belittled in a way by the other horses in the race. By other horses, I mean the many variables of real life. In a game, however, let's think about right now, you're listening to me talk, and yet at the same time, you're also thinking about that argument that you had with your friend last night and where you're going to have a drink as soon as I'm done blabbering. In a game, however, that world is in a way pure. It is made for us to experience it one frame at a time. This is why games are so effective at making us feel. And with that, I'd like to talk about the most dangerous, look how quiet it got, the most dangerous, most common cause of death amongst men around the world. Emotions. That's not true, by the way, don't look that up. Because it's the emotions that we tie to a game that make it special for us. And that's why I'd like to talk about the emotions that I felt playing the games that were most influential for me. And the first is belonging. Destiny is a game where it's another one of those games where playing with other people is an inevitable part of the experience. It includes large open spaces that are packed with other players for you to explore and play the game with, as well as more tightly structured missions of varying scales where teamwork and coordination are key. I remember going through one of those missions, one of the larger scale ones, with 5 complete strangers, which proved no easy feat because it took us over 6 hours to complete. Yet by the end, we'd established such an effective way of communicating with each other. We worked so well together that we decided to form a group. This group would then become the basis for many future endeavors. The members of this group, we pushed each other to become better at the game and learn more about it. Working together, we also, more simply put, we became close friends as well. With these people, I felt like I belong. Not only just in the group, but also in the game world itself. Right now, I'd like you to think about a game from your childhood, not necessarily a video game. Think about who you played it with. Think about how you'd feel playing that game today. If you asked me to think of a game, it would probably be Halo. Playing Halo in my childhood, this was at a time where, in order to play a multiplayer game, you had to physically carry your home console all the way to your friend's place, because he happened to have a second monitor in the same room, so we can play together. Today this seems tedious, but at the time it was fine because it allowed us to do something we considered miraculous, which is to see your friend move on screen alongside you. Flash forward more than 10 years later to my tiny student's apartment in Munich, and I'm playing a remade version of that original Halo dubbed the Master Chief Collection. At this point, there was something called split-screen multiplayer, which allowed up to 4 people to play on the same screen on the same console. But because of the technological advances, at this point, this was considered an old school feature. It was considered a dying trend. Yet here I am, playing it with 3 of my closest friends, finding myself overwhelmed by this feeling, which reminded me of that first time, seeing my friend move on screen alongside me. And I'm not alone. Gamers often fight to keep their favorite old games alive. We've seen this with the revival of the Halo 2 multiplayer servers on PC, after games got together and asked the developers not to shut them down more than 5 years after the original release of the game. Finally, I'd like to talk about empathy. Now, I'll be quite honest. I'm not sure that this is the right word that I'm looking for, but maybe you guys can help me out. Journey is a game which starts in a seemingly endless desert. It's undeniably beautiful. The sound design is so incredible. It did this thing where the music always blended with the way that you moved your character on screen. The game was a technical marvel, yet that wasn't what grabbed me about it. But rather, after 20 minutes in my hour and a half with Journey, I encountered something which I didn't know was part of the game. Another shrouded figure that looked just like mine. The way this figure moved and behaved indicated that this was a real person. And yet, unlike Destiny or Halo, there was no name tag above their head. I couldn't just hook up a mic and start talking to them. But we both had a very clear objective: get to the top of that mountain, which we did. By the end, this person, I felt a certain connection to them, which was strange because I didn't know who this person was or where they're from. I didn't know anything about them. I realized that my time with this person was about to end, but I didn't want it to, so I stopped. A few seconds later, this person noticed this and stopped as well, and we just sat there. I hadn't said a single word to this person the entire time, and yet at that moment, I knew that we felt exactly the same way. To me, that very moment meant so much. It meant equality. It meant humanity. It meant that any two people, no matter who they are or where they're from, could connect. It had completely changed the way that I thought of others. Now, I've done what I can to explain to you or give you a taste of what it's like to be a gamer. But if you look at all those stories that I just told you, they're all quintessentially me. Because no game is ever experienced the same way twice. Play is something we're all born with. It's the first thing we know how to do, and nobody ever taught us that. I find it tragic that with time we seem to lose that connection to our roots. It's one thing to understand what it means to be a gamer, and another thing completely to be a gamer yourself. Thank you.